Welcome back to Whiteout Weekly Season Dose. I am Matt Martelluzzi here back with my co-host Dave the Croatian Bear Baron. We are pumped. Haven't spoken to you guys in a while. A lot has happened since we've last put out a podcast. Dave, what has caught your mind the most in the offseason since we've spoken to the people last?
It's been a bit. It's been a minute, but good to be back, man. Lots happened. New faces in the coaching staff. You got new faces in the program. A much more intact QB room, which is very exciting to see.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But from a recruiting aspect, even looking ahead to the 23 class, had tons of commits and then decommits. Everywhere from Marcus Stokes to Marion Parker. Committing to the Lions and then taking their name out of the hat, but still in a really good position and just really excited to see, this season get rolling, man. We're a week away. I'm stoked.
It's crazy how it sneaks up on you every year. Like you think you're prepared for it, then it's like, oh shit, we got college football in 2 weeks or like 3 weeks, something like that. Like summers, as you get older, summers literally fly by.
Yeah, especially when you start on a Thursday night.
Yeah, fact of nature. So what caught my eye was the whole conference realignment. So as an Eagles fan, I am so happy that I get to see Chip Kelly in the Big Ten playing Big Ten football. Like how is that going to work? That's going to be exciting as shit. But then I'm also nervous about USC joining the conference. Lincoln Riley seems to be a quarterback whisperer. I don't want another one of those kind of programs in the conference. But Dave, do you think so? Obviously, I think that USC and UCLA will join the two separate divisions. But do you think maybe that the top four programs being in the same division logically might not be the best idea? And we could see something different because I've been harping on this for years, like that Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, all in the same division. Makes no sense to me. And say USC joins that division. It's just like what? Like it's just a powerhouse division. They're just all going to eat each other by the end of the year.
Yeah, the divisions don't make much sense. The geography doesn't make sense, but adding the depth to the conference, obviously the Big Ten here, right? They're trying to compete with the SEC. Big Ten, they struck gold on that new TV deal, which is going to be huge. They maintain the Fox, big noon game. They're going to take over the CBS 3:30 Eastern game, which is huge. Then they're gonna have the NBC primetime game. So the Big Ten is trying to stick it to the SEC, and the SEC is going to have ESPN only, right? So, in that regard, they're trying to, pony up the dough and, or I guess, as a matter of fact, get more dough from that TV deal. But I think it's big for the conference. It's definitely interesting.
For sure.
Envisioning either a late October, early November whiteout where UCLA or USC has to travel to Happy Valley, or on the contrary, you got Penn State fans venturing out to Los Angeles in early November to escape the Northeast harsh winters to go see our beloved Lions pounded to Chip Kelly and the UCLA Bruins. So it's a cool contrast. I think at some point the divisions are going to drop. You've seen the Pac-12 doing it this year. Obviously, the Pac-12 is crumbling and they're fighting for their lives right now.
They do Big 12 as well, right? They're just like 1 through, I guess, 12.
Correct. Yeah. So they're still, I think as of this year, they're still playing a division-like schedule. But in regards to who makes the conference championship game, it'll be the best two programs. So I think the Big Ten has to get there, especially if they're going to continue to try to go neck and neck with the SEC. They're going to want to put the best two programs on that stage.
Yes.
So probably, maybe not next year, but I think the year after, especially seeing where Notre Dame may fall in this, if Oregon comes and joins the pack, I think you're looking at probably a couple more teams that are going to come over and continue to expand the Big Ten. And I think at that point, you're going to have to drop the division aspect, because you can't just have the lowly, low scoring West teams continue to find a way to get to Indy at the end of the year. You're going to have to allow the big dogs eat and have a chance at that championship game and not be hindered by, their division.
I love that. Let the big dogs eat. And yeah, it's like, with all due respect to Northwestern, they had a phenomenal year in 2020, right?
Yep.
That's when they made it to the title. All due respect to Wisconsin, it's like, if you went through the ringer of Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State every single year, you might not be in that position.
Yeah.
And just logically, it makes sense to put your 4 biggest programs in your conference, not in the same division where they're eating each other up, and then only one of them gets to go represent the Big Ten basically every year. Ohio State.
For sure.
So before we move on to the schedule, which we kind of hinted at, I want to bring up, a lot of people are saying that this might be a prove it year for James Franklin, even though he signed a pretty much 10-year deal. So he's pretty much locked in. But people are saying it's a prove it year in terms of his output on the field. Like, we've kind of seen the same repetitive nature over and over again. And my theory is that because Penn State has such a family culture and family locker room, and everyone, Franklin mainly wants to see all of his players succeed on the field and off the field, mainly off the field, that it makes it more difficult to make decisions like the one Nick Saban had to make in whatever national championship game was, that where he took out Jalen Hurts at halftime, a junior quarterback who led him to a national championship, took him out at halftime and put in a freshman who ended up leading them to victory, and then started that freshman the next year and had Jalen Hurts ride the bench. I just don't see James Franklin in that vein. Do you agree with that, or am I completely off base there?
I don't either, and it's hard, right? Because he's got the comfort of that 10-year deal, right?
Yeah.
And you spoke on the family culture of this fan base, but you do have the number one rated quarterback, according 24/7 Sports and a lot of other recruiting websites, waiting in the wings there. You have a very, I'll say, a much more viable backup this year. The QB depth that this team has, we haven't seen this in God knows how many years. And I know they're all very young, but the talent level in that room is far beyond what we've seen, way beyond, we obviously saw last year, right, where Clifford went down the Iowa game and Taquan Robertson, a lot of it's on the kid, but a lot of it's on the coaching staff not having that guy ready to go.
But we did see the Canadian sensation tear it up.
We did. We did, so it's right?
Like then we have talent back there.
Right. And that game experience was extremely valuable. And that, even though it was one game, it was against Rutgers, right? We blew them out, shut them out.
True.
But that's still a Big Ten. That's still a Big Ten atmosphere that he has under his belt. So you're looking at the non-con. We'll get in the schedule, right? But theoretically, if you start off 1-2, I know it's a very accepting and very family-based fan base. Folks are going to start clamoring for, hey, let's get Bayu in, let's get Aller in, let's see what he's got. And a lot of folks are tired of Clifford, and you could go through the numbers all day, right? And a lot of what he's going to lead as part of his legacy, he's going to lead in a lot of categories just because of his length of service. But you got to start looking to the future, and you got to get this fan base excited and have a reason to believe that, they're good with you being here for the next 9 years or 10 years rather. So
yeah,
it's a tough spot to be in. And I'm very curious to see how this plays out. Over the first 4 weeks. You're going to know right away how the season's going to go, obviously, and what the future of this team's going to be. If we're going to just let Clifford go because he's been here and we want to honor him, Or are you going to flip the page and say, hey, we're already looking at 2023, 2024 and a potential college football playoff run?
And that's what I'm worried about, is just keeping Clifford in for 3 games too long, where we drop like 2 of those 3 and just like completely put ourselves out of contention for any sort of Big Ten championship or playoff picture this year. And after going 5-0 to start the season last year, and then dropping, I think it was 5 of the last 7 games, it's
Yeah,
like,
including the bowl game.
so even if, so say Clifford starts off the year again 5-0, and then we had 3 straight losses. In one of those losses, I need to see if Clifford's not playing well, because we ask him to do pretty simple college quarterback things, like just throw outside the numbers, intermediate routes, deep routes outside the numbers, which he has proven time and time again he can't do it consistently enough. So I'm hoping that if it comes to that point where even if things are going super well, that in a game where he's not performing up to the ability that we need him to, that Franklin has the balls to pull him out and throw in either VU or our freshman guy, Aller. One of the two, whoever's ready, you know?
Yeah, you know what you're going to get from Clifford. No, in his 3 or 4 years as a starter, you can average it out. He's at about 60% completion percentage, and nothing's going to change there.
Yeah.
There's folks saying, oh, he could have the Kenny Pickett year, right, where he steps up. I don't think we're going to see that from him.
It's a 6-year, like we kind of, yeah.
I think the game changer would be, obviously he's got a second-year coordinator, which he hasn't had yet. So you give him a little bit of a benefit of a doubt there, where he's got Yosich in for a second year.
Very true.
His strength is when we utilize his legs, and when he has that ability to be able to run and extend the play, extend the pocket. But if he's in a spot where he gets banged up and he's retracted back to staying in that pocket, you know what you're going to get out of that. So it's just a matter of, hey, that's not going to be good enough, and it's this year we're trying to contend, or do we pull him out and see what we got with the future? So
yeah, and I think for teams like Ohio State, Michigan, you can't just rely on a 60% accuracy quarterback and using his legs to make plays against that. You need a guy who's going to sling it in a pocket presence.
And he's got all the weapons this year, right? We're about as loaded, and it may seem biased, but we're as loaded at the skill positions as we've been in quite some time. And I know the questions are always going to be around the offensive line, right? Can they step up? Can they protect him? We'll get into that, but we're loaded at the skill positions. There's literally zero excuse for why, if he's the guy, why he should not be able to perform with what he's got at his disposal. And that's with losing Jahan Dotson.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, all eyes are on, for sure, Clifford and Franklin for that matter. And just going back, I don't think this is a make or break year for Franklin whatsoever.
No.
I think, I mean, even if he does keep Clifford in the entire season, I think he's got enough with this draft or recruiting class and depth that he's kind of set the foundation for what's to come next season if this season doesn't hit right away. With that, though, we will go into the schedule real quick. We're going to go over each game. Both gave a winner or loss, and then we'll tally our records at the end to see where we have Penn State finishing up. So first game, kind of weird, starting off with a Big Ten opponent on a Thursday. But we got at Purdue, September 1st, battle of the 6-year quarterbacks, Aiden O'Connell versus Sean Clifford. Just some betting facts for you. Penn State's 6-2 straight up, but 4-4 against spread against Purdue under Franklin. and they're 15-2 straight up and 11-6 against the spread in the series. So those are pretty good numbers for them to come out and win this game, especially with Purdue losing a lot of their weapons on offense. I have a W for Penn State here.
Yeah, definitely don't want to underscore the type of environment that it's going to be. It's Big Ten road opener, right? I do like the fact that Penn State's rolling in unranked, as when the AP poll, coaches poll came out, a lot of folks, hey, we're not even ranked, but do like that underdog mentality. Last time Penn State rolled into a season unranked, you're looking at 2016. Hey, won the Big Ten title, so I'll take that. Purdue, they're opening up with their blackout atmosphere that has gotten them some big time wins against some
do they do that multiple times, or is that a one-off?
I think it's once a year. Every team has their copycat to the whiteout, so
they're blowing
they're rolling the dice on week one.
Yeah,
they're going all out on a Thursday night, right? Probably no classes on a Friday, but
it's a little too much energy, like Penn State. Too early.
But I like Penn State in this spot. I think they come out strong. They're all the things that you hear through spring ball, through fall camp. They're focused. They're ready. Obviously, Franklin has his 1-0 mentality, right? When you start off the season, just focused on Purdue. So I think they do come out strong. I think first half could be a little testy. Obviously, it's season opener, Big Ten. It's not your average FCS opponent or MAC opponent, but I think Penn State comes out on top here. I think the spread, we were looking at -3, -4, somewhere in that range. I think they even cover that, but I do like the Knits in the opener.
Yeah, I got that -3 on DraftKings right now. -3 at -120 vig. So yeah, I think we come out on top on that. We both agree. Starting off 1-0, and then we'll move on to week 2, September 10th, versus the Ohio Wildcats or Bobcats?
Bobcats.
Ohio Bobcats. I got that as another easy dub.
Yeah, 3-9 last year in the MAC.
I mean, home openers are usually just like a fucking blowout. So
yeah, that's a dub.
And then the next week is the much more interesting week. Week 3, September 17th at Auburn. This is a big one.
Big one at Jordan Hare. You got the 3:30 time slot. You got Brian Harsin in his second year after a tumultuous offseason, losing just about everyone on the coaching staff. Players transferred out. Bo Nix gone. Do have Tank Bigsby back, who is very arguably the best running back in the SEC. No Smoke Monday this year. One of our favorite players from last year when we did the preview. But a lot of people giving Auburn, I've seen anywhere from 6-7 wins. I think they have an okay season. I think they contend. I still don't think they're anywhere close to competing in the SEC West. I think this will be a good early test for the Lions, just like last year was at home. Obviously, this is on the road, so a little bit tougher. I think the Lions come out on top here. I haven't seen what the early lines are, but I think, we talk as much as we want about Clifford, but I think having that composure going in that type of environment, I think helps you here. A lot of questions still up in the air for Auburn at the quarterback spot. They had TJ Finley, who came in spots last year. I think he's had some off the field issues this offseason. They got Zach Calzada, transfer from A&M. They haven't named the starter yet. I think there's still a lot of newness there with the players and the coaching staff, but I think the Lions go in there and get this dub.
And this is where we're going to disagree for the first time this season.
Oh,
I just think so. Last year we had, in my opinion, a more complete defense in terms of defensive line, linebacker, secondary, and Tank Bigsby still managed to basically run that game. He rushed for 102 yards, 2 touchdowns. and we won 28-20. So he basically was their entire offense. I mean, we can stack the box all we want, but I just don't see a way of stopping him. And I think Auburn's going to be very fired up this season, running behind him. I can see this being an early L in a very, very close game in a heated contest on the road in SEC territory. So I'm gonna have us going 2-1 at week 3, while you have us 3-0. All right, heading into week number 4, Central Michigan. Pretty easy. I think we got a dub here.
Got a dub. A little bit more formidable of a MAC opponent than Ohio.
For sure.
9-4 last year. Actually have a really high power. I guess you could call it high powered offense. Did rank 24th nationally.
I mean, they bring in wide receivers to the NFL like every
They
single
did.
year.
They did. They did
Like,
lose a lot, to the draft and to the portal, but I think it's still a dub. Obviously, you're at home. It's a MAC opponent. You got to win those games. But a little bit closer than you might think. But yeah, it's definitely a dub. So I got them 4-0 at this point.
yeah, I can see one of those two, either Ohio or Central Michigan, being a lot closer than we're gonna think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we won't cover, in other words. Moving on, week number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, October 1st, at home against Northwestern. So a couple betting stats on that. We're 7-2 straight up against them, and 6-3 against the spread since 05. And Pat Fitzgerald and company had it rough, to say the least, last year, but they're returning a bunch of starters. So it could be a tougher game offensively for us, just because their defense is known to be very sound and fundamental. So I see that being a closer game, but I still think we pull away with the victory there.
They are returning a bunch of starters, but when you return starters from a bad team, it's not always the best.
I mean, so true.
You can,
Yeah.
but no, I do like Pat Fitzgerald a lot. I think he's going to rebound, and I don't see them having 2 back-to-back horrible seasons. We've pretty much owned them over the last few years. I don't think they retooled or revamped enough to compete here. It's your classic Big Ten matchup. Not saying we're going to come in and shut them out or blow them out, but I do like this as a W.
Yeah, what
For the
date is it?
Lions.
October 1st.
October
I
1st.
mean, that's a little, yeah, I can see that being a blustery day in Happy Valley.
For sure.
Like a 17-3 score or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then after that, week 6, we got a bye. And then, so basically, October is the Nittany Lions Gauntlet.
Yeah.
So we started off at home against Northwestern. October 8th, we have a bye. The following week, October 15th, we're at the Michigan
Michigan.
Wolverines at the Big House. Good news on the betting front for that. Visitors have won 2 straight and covered the last 3 games there. So I don't know if you want to put that into any reality, but that's what the historic betting numbers say. But also, Michigan is returning a lot of their starters as well. Corbell, right, the running back, he's a stud. McNamara's back. Yeah, that's gonna be a tough, tough game, and I got see this just goes back to the Franklin and Sean Clifford conversation. Like, if Clifford's the QB and he's sucking, and we just keep in the game, we're losing that game. So I'm gonna go with what Franklin has shown me in the past. He's gonna keep Clifford in the game, and I'm gonna have to say that's our second loss, unfortunately. 4-2.
Yeah. Start time, obviously, still TBD on that. I could see this, especially if the Nits, like I said, 5-0, or if you got them 4-1. I think depending on where Michigan's at, I think this would probably be a primetime slot on ABC. I haven't looked at what else is going on that weekend. Probably some top tier SEC games, so we'll see there. But I do think this would be potentially in that primetime slot. Hate Michigan, obviously, and Beaver Stadium's a much tougher atmosphere than Ann Arbor, but can't knock that crowd, that environment. That's where you hope that Clifford helps you, but despite what Michigan's lost Aiden Hutchinson, Ajabo, all those key pieces, but I do like Michigan this year. I think they have a pretty favorable schedule, and especially getting us here at home. I would
Yeah.
chalk this up as, I think it's close. I don't see us getting blown out, but I do think this is where I would pin this as our first trip up here.
Yeah, coming off a bye too.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna write this down for future Big Ten betting minutes. I could see us covering or competing in the first half of that game, but I think in the end, that home environment, that home cooking, a couple calls are going to go their way. I think in the end they're going to come out on top, unfortunately. Week after that, October 22nd, the whiteout game, surprisingly, versus the Golden Gophers of Minnesota.
Gophers, eh?
Kind of weird that we did the whiteout against the Gophers instead of against Ohio State the next week, but all right, let's do it and crush the Gophers, I guess. Must win, probably, following the Michigan loss that we both are agreeing on. Little bet stats on that. In the series, the home team is 5-2 straight up, so that would be Penn State, and 6-1 against the spread, including 3 straight wins and covers. So that's looking good in the betting space for Penn State.
I don't know how much this factored into it, but I do think, obviously we're going to get to the Ohio State game next, but I think there were some indications that Ohio State game was going to fall as the Fox at noon game. So I think that might be what led to the decision to do the whiteout for the Minnesota game.
But that game's probably going to be at noon, I would expect.
The Ohio State game, they already announced that the Minnesota game is prime time. So
it's already prime time. Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's why they went that route. It's also homecoming weekend, so it's going to be cool, pretty cool combo of whiteout / their Generations of Greatness unis, which are pretty damn sweet. So
actually, that makes tons more sense now that you laid it out for me.
So couple pretty cool storylines here, right? You got Tanner Morgan, who's still kicking as the quarterback of Minnesota. So if you remember a couple years ago,
Tanner Morgan, jeez.
Lions were 9-0, went to Minnesota and fell in that game with Clifford at the helm. You got Kirk Shiraka, who's back as OC at Minnesota after that very brief tenure, the 1 year at Penn State. So he's got a little bit of revenge on his mind. But the Lions have revenge on their mind here after that loss. So I think in that environment, those uniforms, homecoming weekend, I don't see the Lions losing this game at all. And I think they win. Actually, Minnesota's going to have a good year, but I think the Lions win big that night in Happy Valley.
The revenge factor is going to be huge for sure.
Yeah.
Getting back at them. Speaking of that, I'm just looking at some teams we lost to last year. Iowa, not on the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of upset about that.
I know you are.
I want them back bad. All right, so both got with dubs against Minnesota at home, which could honestly be circle that, because that could be a trap week, because next week we're looking forward to October 29th, Halloween weekend. I don't know where Halloween falls this year. Halloween weekend at home against the Buckeyes. I mean, this team, CJ Stroud, Heisman favorite, Travion Henderson, one of the best running backs in all of college football. Jackson Smith and Jigba, he was broke out last season after having Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson on the outside. So he's going to be a key member in the slot. And then they have Marvin Harrison on the outside, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
And not only that, their offensive line, again, retooled, defense retooled. So they're becoming, I'm not going to put them on Alabama's level, but they're becoming the Alabama of the Big Ten, I would say. Would that be a fair assessment?
I think so, especially when you get Stroud there.
Yeah.
So we're going through the schedule this year, right? But you look ahead to next year, Stroud will be gone. So you would think that's when the Lions could capitalize, right? You got Aller probably coming into the helm, but knowing Ohio State, they're going to have another 5-star quarterback
or a transfer,
right behind Stroud or a transfer. So I just don't think, like I said, it might be that noon game, could be early afternoon spot. I doubt it's prime time, but who knows? I think Penn State announced they're going to do the stripe out that game, so it'll be cool atmosphere. But I think with the weapons, even like you said, despite what they lost, they still have Jackson Smith and Jigba. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. and a slew of other wideouts. Trayvon Henderson could very well be the best running back in college football, right up there with Bijan Henderson at Texas. But Penn State always plays Ohio State close, so I don't think this year would be any different. But I don't have a great feeling about it. That those feelings may change as we get closer, but I think as of right now, if I had to pick it, I'd say the Buckeyes come into Happy Valley and win this game.
Yeah, the fact that we're at home makes me feel a little bit better, but again, it's the noon game. If this were a whiteout 8 p.m., I might actually pick this as an upset and Penn State victory, but for whatever reason, just noon games, Ohio State, that just spells disaster and disappointment. So I'm going to go with our third loss of the season. So I have as 5-3 to end the month of October. You're saying a loss as well?
Yep.
All right. So you guys had 6-1, a little more optimistic than me. two less losses.
6-2 because I had Michigan losing.
Oh, you had the Michigan loss.
Yeah.
Okay. So 6-2.
6-2.
5-3, 6-2 heading into November. First game of November 5th, we're facing the Hoosiers in Indiana, in Hoosierland, off a bye. They're off a bye. Bet stats on that were 23-2 straight up against them, but only 13-12 against the spread. So we somehow, Indiana always has our number every year. Not sure how that's possible, but they always play us tough. However, I still think that 2020 game where that quarterback did the Superman Penix Jr. Yeah, I still think that's going to linger in some of these kids' heads because they were on the team then, and that was the start of an 0-5 start that year, which stung everybody. So I still think that's kind of like in the back of everyone's mind. I mean, we beat them 24-0 last year. So I think that just continues. We're just going to keep stomping on them until they realize, hey, go back to being Indiana. That was a one-off thing, once in a generation type thing. Go back to being yourselves. So big dub for Penn State there. What do you got?
Yeah, that should be the fucking expectation against the Hoosiers, especially at Indiana, where they are notorious for the fans not showing up at the game, do the tailgate and not even going into the game. This is absolutely a W, and in big fashion again, just like you said. I think they got Jack Tuttle starting this year, who, if you remember that highlight from last year, got absolutely crushed.
This one of my favorite
Destroyed.
clips of all. That was his first play, I think, in the game, or
I
his
think it
first
was
like
his
drop
first
back.
snap once Penix went out.
He
So
just goes back, whoa,
yeah. But
horizontal to
yeah,
the ground.
Lions continue the trend and get right back on the trend of just crushing the Hoosiers. So yeah, that's a
Oh man, thank you for bringing that. That just made me smile. That was one of the funniest things. He was a freshman, right, when he came in that game?
yes.
Just blown up. All right. Second week of November, we got Maryland, the Terps at Beaver Stadium, November 12th. Which so I kind of hyped this up as a rivalry last season. Just because of the whole, I forget what year it was, the handshake thing where they wouldn't shake our hands, and just because location wise they're right there, we kind of recruit from the same hotbeds. But looking at the stats, since they've joined the Big Ten, we're 6-1 straight up against them, 5-2 against spread. So not much of a rivalry, but Talia Tagovailoa, I still think he's one of the most underrated talents in college football. I don't know if it's coaching or maybe him with his reads and his studying, but I've been saying he's going to have a breakout year for the past 2 years now. I think he's going to have a breakout year this year, tripling down on it. But that being said, I just think we're the big brother to Maryland's little brother right now. Until they can really come up with a recruiting class that can compete with like Penn State, I think we still own them. So I got us moving to 7-3 there. Yeah, 2 games left, 7-3.
Yeah, I think I like your point about Talia. I think he's going to continue to progress. He's a real talent. Really nice quarterback, especially in the Big Ten. They got some nice depth at wide out, which will help that offense. I think the key here, games at home. So I always like, obviously, the Lions in Happy Valley. For me, obviously, I got them rolling in this game with 2 losses, so still something to play for here. So I think they show up and they take care of business and continue to squash the faux rivalry.
So you got us at 8-2 heading in the last 2 games. And I'm at 7-3. All righty. Just trying to keep track of this. So second to last week, just like last season, except at Rutgers, November 19th. Last year we beat them 20-0. The Canadian sensation was actually the passing leader of that game, 235 through the air. I don't know if this is just random people on Twitter, but I've heard like Rutgers is some kind of like sleeper team this year. Is there any credibility to that or no?
They're definitely better off with Schiano at the helm, with him being back. I still think he's
been back for a couple of years though, right?
I still think he's got another year or two before he truly gets his guys in that program and continues to build them up. They're definitely a little bit more formidable, but they're still a bottom feeder in the Big Ten. And going to Piscataway, for whatever reason, you could call it a little bit hostile because there's definitely that hatred there from Rutgers to Penn State, but we don't really think anything of it. So I think it's an easy win, especially if you're at this point in the year. If you're 8-2, right, the idea is that Clifford's still playing well. So for me, I think he handles that environment just fine. So I think they come out with a dub here.
Yeah, I mean, for whatever reason, it seems like Temple and Rutgers fans just hate Penn State for, I guess, just for being good, or I don't know why. They just hate Penn State.
Yeah.
So it's just like, all right, you're gonna give us that bulletin board material. We're just gonna shove it through it. I got us winning as well. So I got us at 8-3 heading in the last game. You're at 9-2. Last game, just like last year, only at home. Michigan State Spartans, which every year I have no clue what's going on with the Michigan State program. Like they could easily be in the top 5 at this point in the season, or they could just be irrelevant. Like every year, it seems like we're getting a new version of Michigan State. But just some betting facts on that. There's been 3 outright upsets in the last 5 years. So if Penn State is following your trajectory, or even mine, at even 3, 9-2, they could be the favorite in that game, which means they need to be careful in their last game against Michigan State. So this is where it turns on me, because I want to believe Penn State's gonna have an improvement of the record from last year, 7-5. But I don't know if they're gonna go that far to a 9-3 season, you know. But then again, we do have the depth and the versatility to kind of, if shit goes wrong, we can kind of recalibrate, reformulate. We have players to plug in and play. So I'm going to give us the victory here. We're going to go 9-3. Burmy.
Yeah,
What do you say on this game?
It's a rivalry game, obviously, battle for the land grant. It's at home this year. I think the revenge you can always throw a revenge factor in then, right? But you had the snow game last year where we fell short, and even in a down season, still leaves a sour taste. For me personally, I like what Mel Tucker's doing at Michigan State. You can, hear about all the top recruits that he's bringing in, and competing with programs that Michigan State hasn't really competed with from a recruiting aspect. I see them taking a little bit of a back step this year. Although I do like what he's doing there, I don't know that they're going to be in that same realm where they were last year, right? Competing for 9-10 wins. So for me, again, with the trajectory that I got the lines on, I've talked myself into a lot, even go back looking at Maryland, right? I could see that, oh shit, are they going to lose that game, Minnesota game, things like that. So this season obviously could go either way. I've talked myself into 10 wins here. So I do think they come out on top in this game. Just like you said, you never know how this one's going to play out. Could be close, could be a blowout. You just never fucking know. So you just hope that all cylinders are clicking heading into the bowl game, heading into potentially a Big Ten championship game, depending on where Michigan and Ohio State are at this point. Or at the very least, you're competing for a New Year's 6 here. So I think the Lions get this last win of the season.
Do you see the Big Ten? I forget what are we in, the Big Ten West or East? I mean,
East, yeah,
East and West. Big Ten East. Do you see that coming down to an undefeated Michigan versus an undefeated Ohio State last week, or do you see one of them slipping up somewhere throughout the season?
It's hard to see Ohio State slipping up. I think their over under was set at 11. They open up at home against Notre Dame, but it's Notre Dame with a first-year head coach, brand new quarterback. So I don't think it's the right time for them to nab Ohio State and sneak one on them. So just looking at their schedule, it's hard to see like their hardest game. One of them might be at Penn State, but again, we talked about it's a noon game, so it's kind of favors on their side. And you got a potential Heisman and potential top 5 pick in CJ Stroud, an electric offense. So I think really Michigan would be the one that falters, although I do like them this year. They have a pretty favorable schedule. I think it's going to come down to us competing.
By chance?
Who's that, Michigan?
Yeah.
I'd have to pull it up. Let me see.
Yeah, I just want to go over their schedule to see, because I completely agree. I think Ohio State is, as always, restacked, reloaded, ready to go. Alabama, the Big Ten. Michigan is, they're returning a lot of people, but they're still they're not a very dynamic offense. Their defense is good, but not all worldly where they're gonna just they rely on their defense and shut them down to under 10 points every game. So I definitely see them faltering too.
Yeah, so I got it now. So you look at Michigan. So their non-con starts off home against Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn. Very easy 3-0. First Big Ten game, home against Maryland. Again, Maryland we think could be pretty tough this year, but you get them at home. October 1st at Iowa. So that would be the one where I would pencil in a potential trip up.
Yeah,
Obviously, we know that Kinnick atmosphere, depending on what's going on that weekend. Lions, that's when we're at Northwestern. So depending on what's going on in the SEC, could be a primetime game. Who knows?
scumbags at Kinnick.
Yeah, then you got at Indiana, home against the Lions, home against Michigan State, at Rutgers, home against Nebraska, home against Illinois, and then final game at Ohio State. So pretty favorable schedule there, especially with getting us at home. So really you're looking at Iowa and then potentially home against Michigan State. And then other than that, it's really just that last game with the Buckeyes. So I think it would really just be Michigan tripping up versus the Buckeyes.
They're at home against Michigan State.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say if they're on the road there, that might be a potential, but at home might be a little different because that rivalry is always intense.
Mm-hmm.
Have you looked up what Penn State's win total?
Eight
That
and a
is
half.
8.5. So we both have them going over that 8.5. I have them going just barely over it. So I don't know if I would put that into your. Are you gonna bet it?
I'm gonna take it. I think
I'm gonna stay away just because I have them at 9 with like 2 games that I'm like iffy about.
yeah,
So
the
I would just kind of
eight and a
take it
half's
week to
tough
week.
because you could totally see 8-4, right? So obviously it's a risky play, but I do see 9-3 more favorable than an 8-4 outcome. But
All right, and then speaking of betting, our final segment for this opening little podcast, we are going to not do the Big Ten betting bonanza to start off. We're going to save that for next week when there's more games. This week, however, we're going to kind of going with the theme of the season preview. We're going to do our final 4 teams, our championship game, and our champion, and then 2 Heisman picks. Before we do that, I want to get what would you say is your theme for this year's Penn State season? Could be a phrase, could be one word.
I'm gonna say new blood.
I like that. I'm going for something similar. Brighter times ahead.
Like that.
I think at some point in the season we're going to be down in the dumps after a loss we did not foresee coming. God forbid it's to Central Michigan or something like that. But I think we're gonna going back to how we started the podcast. I think at some point we're gonna see Franklin finally show that he's capable of evolving this team into what we all wanted to become, a powerhouse. And if Clifford's struggling, he's going to make that change. And that's the signal to me that, okay, Franklin, I love the family aspect. I'm not trying to trash that as much as I've talked against it. That's a great component to Penn State football. But in terms of winning, it's just like you got to do what you got to do sometimes. And it makes it that much more difficult with awesome atmosphere Penn State's created to do that. So it's kind of a catch-22, you know?
Yeah, you have to be able to recognize the window. And with the talent that's in the program now and that you have coming in the next couple of years, realistically, if you're looking at it by 2025, I'll give it. If you haven't made a legitimate run at the college football playoff or been in the college football playoff, and you'd be looking at what, year 4 of the 10-year deal.
Dude,
Uh,
2025. I'm
and
out
that's
by
that's being very favorable
then.
for me. I think 2024 the latest. The
Yeah.
Lions have to be in the college football playoff,
Yeah,
or
when
we got to
Aller
move
is
on.
either junior
That'll
or
be Aller's second year.
redshirt sophomore or
Depending
junior
on
or
how
whatever.
good he is out the gate, you could even look at 2023, especially with all the skill position players having another year under the belt. But yeah, I would say 2024 the latest.
All right. So back to the college football predictions and Heisman predictions. I'll go for we each go. I'll go one team. You go one team. I'm pretty sure we both have the same first team.
Hmm.
Let's say it on three. 1, 2, 3. Alabama.
Alabama.
Yes.
Shocker.
I mean, right? Yeah, Bryce Young. He's a stud college football quarterback. I don't know how he's going to translate to the pros. We're going to have to wait and see about that. But their defense is going to be unreal this year with the amount of returning starters they have. It's going to be awesome to watch. Number 2, we probably will have the same for this too. 3, 2, 1. Ohio State.
Georgia.
Whoa. Okay. So Georgia
Oh,
number
different.
2. How's that going to work?
Well, I mean, you had the scenario last year. I think they could both very well meet in the SEC title game.
As a
One be
undefeated.
undefeated, one have
Yeah.
one loss, and I think they both get in.
So meeting in the SEC title game undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I see that. Georgia's lost a lot though.
They have. They still got a lot
players.
of talent though, and can't count out Stetson.
Yeah, and they're another one of those blue bloods that just every year it's 5 stars. So nothing's really changed.
Yeah.
Number 3, since we switched on that, you can go first on your number 3 spot.
I'm gonna put Ohio State in there.
Okay.
I think CJ Stroud, again, Henderson and Jigba. Despite how the defense, I don't know that the defense is going to get back to elite like they've been right in years past with the Bosas, things like that. But I do think that offense is just too elite, and with that quarterback play, they definitely make their way through the Big Ten and get back to the playoff.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I have them as my number 2. I honestly think they might go undefeated. I'm going to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I can see Alabama potentially slipping up there, but I could see 2 undefeated teams. If I'm being honest, I was looking at Alabama's schedule. They don't really have any tough games besides like the SEC opponents, but they're in kind of a weaker division. So my number 3 is going to be a little shocker here out of the Pac-12.
Oh,
a new Big Ten team. USC is going to be the number 3 team. I think with Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams, who was at Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley, saw him fill in for what's that albino guy's name? Rattler. I saw him fill in for Rattler, and it was unreal. Like all of Oklahoma was like chanting for this kid because they knew what he was capable of.
Mm-hmm.
He decides to follow Lincoln to USC. They also got Addison from Pitt, the wide receiver.
Oh.
So I think that it's not going to be like this 2 to 3 year retool for Lincoln Riley and USC. I think he's got his guys now. I think he's ready to make a statement that to all the USC fans and alumni who've been craving a winning season and like a dominant season for a while now, that hey, this is what I'm here. This is what I'm about. This is what I'm about to do. So USC coming out of the Pac-12 as my 3rd team.
Yeah, Lincoln was definitely the right hire there. They also added Travis Dye, transfer running back from Oregon. So they're definitely transfer you this year before he gets his recruits in there. But yeah, they're
yeah, and I think that was purposely done because USC's fan base is one of the more demanding in college football. So I think he's like, all right, we're gonna compete anytime I'm here. Your last playoff team this week.
So last one, I'm gonna be a bit boring here, right? So I got two SEC teams. I got Ohio State. I don't think, especially with divisions, you're not going to get two Big Ten East teams or a Big Ten West team in here. So I think Ohio State would be the loner from the Big Ten. So I'm going to go to the ACC. I think Clemson gets back. I think DJ Uyunglele has a big year coming back. He had a very down year last year, but he's got a true freshman, Clay Klubnik, breathing down his neck. So I think he steps up and performs. Or hey, worst case, they make the switch, just like we've been talking about, and you got a true freshman who's gunning for you. And then on defense, they're just loaded. They got Brian Breesline at D tackle. They got a couple other first round talents there. So I think Clemson does work in the ACC this year and gets back to the playoff.
So I'm gonna kind of go off of what you did in your first two with Alabama, Georgia. I'm gonna have my fourth team as Michigan.
Oh,
I think that the Big Ten East does come down to that last week, and undefeated Ohio State versus maybe no, it has an undefeated Michigan.
mm-hmm.
Michigan loses to undefeated Ohio State team. Ohio State kicks whoever's ass from the West in the Big Ten championship game. Stuff kind of goes crazy in the SEC. The Big 12, who knows what's going on there. USC coming to the Pac-12, so I think the only logical thing for the committee to do is put that one-loss Michigan team who lost to Ohio State in that fourth spot.
That's an interesting storyline there too, because with how, like we've been talking about with the Big Ten trying to compete with the SEC, right? There's those rumors where does the Big Ten and SEC just break off and have their own playoff and break off from the NCAA? So that you never know, right? Does that come into the decision-making process there where, hey, we're going to start to decide.
Yeah.
The committee says, hey, we want to get Big Ten in there over ACC. So
yeah,
that could definitely play out.
Conspiracy theory. I like that. Yeah, that's actually a very good point. I'm going to have to do an episode on that. A little conspiracy. So from there, Alabama, Michigan. I got Alabama winning that game. Ohio State, USC. This is so chalk. I got Ohio State winning. And then Alabama, Ohio State. I got Ohio State pulling off an upset for national championships. As much as it pains me to say that's why I did that quickly.
That'll be painful.
What do you got happening in your Final Four?
So I got what it would be: Bama, Clemson.
Bama, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State for you.
So Bama comes out on top there, and again, this is going to sound boring, but I think Georgia's still loaded enough where I think their defense can stop that offense enough and put enough points up. So I think you got another Bama Georgia final. And I'm going to say, I think Kirby best Saban again.
Back to back.
Hot take. So I got Georgia winning the chip 2 years in a row.
Wow. That would be absolutely crazy. I don't know what their future is. Let me check it real quick. Because I know so yeah, Alabama's plus 175 is the favorite. Ohio State plus 300. Georgia's plus 400. Write that in there. I got plus 300. Clemson's after that at plus 1,000. A&M plus 2,500. USC plus 2,500. So I'm not that crazy picking USC to make the Final Four.
And good odds.
All right. And before we sign off here, we will have an episode right before the Penn State Purdue game on Thursday. We're going to drop that really soon next week. But we're going to finish with our Heisman picks. You can either go Just one, like your gunner, or you can do like a favorite and kind of like a sleeper.
I'm gonna go with one, and I'm gonna go with Travion Henderson.
What's his? I can't find the odds right now.
I think your favorites are you're probably looking at Young and Stroud would probably be your top two. So I actually
Yeah,
haven't
yeah,
seen
they're the top two.
Henderson's odds, but I think with all the attention on Stroud, I think don't get me wrong, he's gonna have a big year, but I think Henderson is that good.
That's that's a good call because I was thinking uh Jackson Smith and Jigba. Then I was like,
Oh,
if he's in contention for the Heisman, there's a good chance that CJ Stroud is just
the
absolutely
guy
lighting it
throwing him
up.
the ball, right? Yeah.
So I'm gonna continue with my USC trend.
Woo!
Go Caleb Williams.
Like
Um,
it.
I think his odds went down. I grabbed him. I'm having trouble finding it on the website right now, but I grabbed him at plus 900. I think he's
I
down to
was
like
gonna say, I thought
plus.
that's what I saw it at.
He's like plus
Yeah.
800 now, or plus 850, something like that.
Mhm.
So I got Caleb Williams as my kind of favorite ish pick, and then sorry, I gotta log in here. My sleeper, I believe he finished sixth in Heisman race last year. Edge rusher for Alabama, Will Anderson plus 2,000.
He very well
So
could have 30 sacks this year, so
yeah,
that would be something.
so $100 bet would win you 2,000. Um,
Love to see a defensive player win the Heisman.
yeah, he finished fifth. Bryce Young, I just don't see him having the stats to compete with Stroud in terms of Heisman conversation. And anytime I look at the Heisman, I always think of the Alabama effect. Like going back to Johnny Manziel beating Alabama. It's like he won the Heisman. Joe Burrow beat Alabama, goes on to win the Heisman. Looking at Alabama's schedule, I don't see any quarterback that can beat them and have that Heisman moment, if you know what I
All
mean.
right.
So I think the Heisman moment is going to come down to them having one of the best defenses we've seen in years, and Will Anderson leading the charge there.
That would be something.
So who was your sleeper?
Sleeper for me. Hang on, I have to look it up because I actually was just going to go with Trey.
I mean, Travion is kind of a sleeper. That's actually when's the let's look this up before we sign off. The last time
Oh, wait, hang on. I got to do my pick real quick.
the last time a running back won the Heisman Trophy was Derrick Henry in 2015.
Damn.
And the other thing with Bryce Young, he won it last year, so it's going to be a little tough to compound on those stats and win it
Yeah, for
back to
sure.
back. That's why I'm going to go with Will Anderson Jr. All right, that's going to wrap it up for our season preview for the Knits. We will be back in just a couple days with our preview of the roster and the preview of the weird Thursday game against the Purdue Boilermakers at Purdue. Tough, strange way to start the season, but we're ready, and we will see you next week.